The second technique I want to talk about is just thinking about what's on your plate, right? Have we heard this metaphor over and over again, right? How much do you have on your plate? Is your plate too full? What can you take off your plate? I feel like, especially those of us in helping professions, I think this is a phrase we use all the time. So here's your sort of metaphorical plate right there. And what I would normally have you do if you hadn't just done the prior exercise is to generate a list of all your commitments, right? These are like the big things. I wouldn't necessarily put the daily things you have to get done on here. Fortunate for you, you've just done this. Oops. So instead of having to generate your list, you have a list. Let's just use the list you just made for the other exercise. And so for this, I want you to take your commitments. And if you scroll down on that Google Doc, and we can put another link in the chat, I'll bring it up also so you can see it. I want you to get all your commitments on your plate. Because again, the visual, I think, can be really helpful for us. I'm going to bring this up for you. If we think about an actual plate. So you should be here on the Google Doc. Okay. So this is my very pathetic representation of a plate, this little blue circle. If you double click, you should be taken to a text box and you can start to list all your commitments that you generated in the prior exercise, right? You have the projects you're working on, the big things that you're really committed to do. Let's again just take it a week at a time. Start typing them here. If you run out of room, just stop. It's only so big. Again, the point is to just get all your commitments onto this plate, right? And then we're going to do one other activity based on it. But I want your commitments from that prior exercise to wind up on the plate in some way. And I give you just 2 minutes to do this because this really should be like a copy and paste thing. So this time I want you to take a look at your commitments on your plate, all the things you have on your plate. And I'm going to ask you a few questions to think about. And then we're going to do a very quick exercise that I think you can do when you're trying to manage your time and figure out how to make everything work. But I want you to ask yourself things like, is your plate overloaded? I imagine most of your plates are full, like Thanksgiving meal level full, right? So that's probably a given, but take a look and ask yourself that. I want you also to think about, are there certain commitments that if they were actual visual representations would be taking up way more of the plate than other things, right? Are there some commitments that are just like, okay, I might have 50 things on here, but these three are taking up like 90% of my plate. Right. So think about that. These are all written on the Google Doc too. But are there some commitments that are just taking up way more space than others? Are there things on your plate that you didn't consciously choose to add there? Just things that are there that you maybe wouldn't have put there? Ask yourself that. And then is there something missing from your plate that you really wish was there? Is there something you wish you had room to put on your plate? I want to give you just like a minute to think about them in your head before we do this quick exercise. And so it's, does your plate feel balanced or overloaded? Which commitments are taking up the most space? Are there things on your plate you didn't consciously choose to add? And finally, what's missing that you wish was on your plate? We'll just take another like 30 seconds. You can jot the answers down. You can just have it in your head, whatever works for you. But then I'm going to ask you to do 3 things with your plates, your full plates. So there's 3 questions, 3 actions you can do with your full list. The first, and this is on your Google Doc, so if you are following along, it has a little box for you. But I want you to remove something. Right now, I want you to take something off your plate that's less critical, because there's something that's less critical on that. You know that. One thing that's less critical or just so draining to you that you need to get it off your plate right now. So I want you to remove one item. I don't know, cross it out, delete it, whatever feels good to you. But I want one thing off. Okay. Then I want you to pick another item to shrink, meaning something that you think can take less time or less energy from you. What could you shrink down of your commitments? Something I'm spending 30 hours a week on this. I could probably spend 10 on it for the next week or so. Okay, so you've taken one thing off and now you've shrunk one thing that you think can take less time or less energy. And then now I want you to add one thing, and I would prefer that to be a self-care or self-compassion activity. Another priority, certainly, yes, you can add, but I would love it if it was a self-care, self-compassion activity. So I want you to add that. And even if it still feels full, I think adding something like this sort of really helps us like process and manage and get through the rest of it. Okay, so this is a very short, quick activity you can do.